Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Let's give everybody a moment or two to enter the room. For those that aren't as prompt as everybody that has just come through, we'll just give a moment or so for them. So, yeah, thank you so much for those that have already come into the room. We're really excited for this. How are you, James?
Yeah, doing well, Stuart. Looking forward to today's conversation. I think it's a timely topic to take a look back at what has been, in many respects, a challenging year, but I think it sets up a lot of exciting stuff for 2025. So, looking forward to digging into it with you today. How are you?
Yeah, good. Super excited to go through this. So it looks like the room is getting pretty full. So okay, well look, let's start. So firstly, hello everybody. My name is Stuart Dale. I'm one of the co-founders at OrbitalX, and I'm joined by one of my other co-founders, James Ford. And we are super excited to go through this review of the year and really forward planning for 2025 to share as many tips as possible on what you can do to ensure that you hit the pipeline goals that you have set and forget about all of the challenges in 2024. So we're really excited to go through it with you, and we're basing all of this discussion on the hundreds of conversations we've had, as well as the 100+ go-to-market motions we've supported in 2024 with the businesses that we work with. So we've got a lot of great insight to be sharing. So before we get into it, I think the kind of key question that we just continue to hear was how can we generate more pipeline without having to dramatically increase our spend? And I think this was really born by the challenges faced in 2024, where you just had these kind of widespread challenges around things like traditional outbound and the fact that what previously worked just no longer is. And that means that meeting book performance is lower than ever with the traditional outbound approach of cold emailing, maybe some LinkedIn, and maybe some calling. The other one that we saw was this challenge around discovery call fatigue, and in particular, the amount of businesses that were struggling to even drive the show up rates that they would expect, and the fact that just continued to decline, where almost like your buyer or the influencer in the buying decision just weren't even participating to join these calls. And we really want to understand, like, how can you solve that moving forward? The other one, James, that you and I speak a ton about is in 2024 there was so much hope with AI and what it would be able to do. But really, there's still a lot of uncertainty in how AI will empower and drive and truly transform go to market effectiveness. And I think there's a lot of discussion there that we're going to have, which I'm really excited about. And then the fourth one is market saturation, which is off the back of the highs of the investment market in 2021 and 2022. There's more competition than ever before, which means that grabbing the attention of your buyers is ultimately harder than it's probably ever been, well, certainly over the last 10 plus years. And finally, the fact that the growth at all cost era is well and truly finished means that, like, what is this new trend that is coming? And we're going to speak through a focal point that we've been obsessing over the last 12 months, which we are really excited by. So let me start by sharing this, because I think this is the interesting bit for everybody, which is, let me ask you, James, what did work in 2024? Because we've been doing quite a lot of discussion around it. So let's spend a bit of time here.
Yeah, perfect, Stuart. I think hearing you walk through those points, they were certainly factors that when we look at the performance in 2024, things that never worked as well as they had done before. But what's the solution to fixing those problems? Is it wholesale change? No, it's making subtle optimizations to those things that we've always done to find the right touch points with prospects, bring them into one-to-one conversation environments, build that trust, and ultimately turn them into customers. And two of the things that we found to work most effectively, those subtle optimizations, was an investment in watchable content, and it was getting back to first principles of cold calling. picking up the phone and starting to build those relationships through conversation, through providing value with these prospects. Now, to focus on watchable content, what isn't new to all of us is video content. It's recording interviews with our founders, getting origin story, getting our perspective, getting how we see the world out into the market. What started to really break through towards the end of 2024 were the teams that were able to take a single production of content, repurpose it into multiple different types of content, and then distribute it effectively to meet their prospects wherever they were on their buying journey. And we're going to dig into it a lot more in this conversation today, but quickly as a top line view, one world-class production of 20 minutes of great content can now be a podcast episode where people do early discovery around your particular topic or what your business is set up to help people with. It can then be broken down into snippets which create the curiosity, create the misconception of what you might be trying to say, but lead people to go and watch the long form. And when people watch the long form and they start to then binge on your brand, they are so much more likely to also engage with your gated video content, which may come in the shape of a webinar. And so this watchable content strategy isn't so much about just creating one production and distributing, it's creating one production, reshaping and distributing in all the various places that our prospects might be to have it working as hard as possible for your business. And that is something that is really starting to turn into a science and an art that is breaking through the noise and building trust with the prospects that should be your customer. And with that watchable content comes more opportunity to provide value in cold calls. Rather than calling someone, and to your point a moment ago, Stuart, which was discovery fatigue, do you want to book a meeting, do you want to have a demo, all of those one lines that make probably all of us to a little extent shiver, we don't need to do that anymore. Can I come and share this insider's look at this particular topic with you? We've got 2 spots available. And so we can leverage this watchable content strategy to provide more value on the calls that we're having, which in turn create different types of conversations, elevate and accelerate the trust gathering, and ultimately lead to the outcomes that we're driving for.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So the watchable content idea, just I guess to understand that, is that what you're saying is that for businesses to record one core piece of content and then ultimately utilizing that across different channels, even different formats. You mentioned about getting the buyers where they are. Can you just kind of give a little bit more explanation into that point?
So one of the mental models that we've developed and we talk about internally is that the idea of a watchable waterfall. So imagine creating one great piece of content which talks to a pain or a problem that your target audience is suffering with today. And when you're trying to figure out what are the pains and problems that your target audience is really suffering with today, try and think about what they are managing and what they are measuring day to day inside their business, and create content which helps them with that. Once you create that production, we then need to think about the different types of content that somebody might consume at different points in their buying journey. Now, at the very early stages of discovery, we see people looking for podcasts around their vertical, around a particular pain point, around a particular category. And so you want to take the audio and the video and get it distributed on the platforms where people go and do that early stage discovery. And we would consider these people very early stage leads. They should be our customer. Right now, they don't know who we are, and they probably don't understand the problem acutely enough to really be a meaningful sales prospect and drive pipeline for our business. But from that primary production, in this watchable waterfall, we can then break it down into snippets. These snippets can then be distributed on the LinkedIn video feed, Instagram, TikTok. All of these platforms are rapidly becoming the search engines of the future, where people go and search for content around the things that they are most interested in. And when you do short form well, it leads people to wanting to view the entire conversation, to get the full context. And that's why it's important that these video productions find their way onto your website, your resources section, but also your YouTube channel. YouTube does a terrific job of cooking somebody each time they watch a piece of your content and surfacing more of your content to them the next time they visit, whether that's on YouTube Shorts or the traditional long form channel that they provide. What the research in the market today is saying is people that consume webinars do it when they are at a consideration or decision stage of solving a problem. And what's really important here in connecting those 2 points that you had on the previous slide, Stuart, is those signals of somebody paying that level of attention, willing to give you their data to reveal themselves as being interested in this topic, is what your business development, sales development teams should be acting on as a priority, to seeing how your business can help them solve these pains to a greater degree in a one-to-one fashion. And it's in those conversations, in those conversions, that drive the pipeline. Because when you can say, hey, you took an interest in this, can you tell me why you took an interest in this today? That pain exists. If I was able to show you this, which takes that level of insight 2 or 3 degrees further, would you be interested in a one-to-one call? Yes. In that one-to-one call, do these problems resonate with you? Absolutely. Would it make sense for us to look at this in more detail? Now these guys are qualified and they're in pipeline.
Yeah.
And so from this one watchable production, we've been able to meet our prospects at the various different stages that they're at and really make our content work as hard for us as possible.
Yeah, I love it. And I think one of the topics you and I discussed at a VC event right at the start of the year was this idea of cascading content and the fact that you can now make the content work so much harder for you by leveraging some of these different tools, technologies, strategies. In this example here, where you've turned one primary production into multiple formats that can be distributed depending on where the buyer is. And I absolutely love it. And I think the next slide for me and the research that was carried out, I think just reinforces why this is such a powerful strategy for us to be obsessing over. And it's this point here, like, why watchable content? And you mentioned the power of webinars and maybe where people are in their buying decision. But I think this really reinforces it. So can you talk us through the work that MP Digital did and really what this is saying to us to reinforce that for 2025, if you want to have great performance and without having to spend hundreds of hours on it, then maybe that idea of watchable content as a winning strategy is something that businesses should seriously consider.
So for anyone that's not familiar, MP Digital is run by Neil Patel. Neil Patel runs probably the leading digital agency in the world. Clients that they manage will be the likes of Microsoft and so forth. And he's an amazing individual, and their business does some incredible things. This piece of research, which they released, I believe at the beginning of Q4 in 2024, like this year, looked at all of the different content types that are available to a marketing team. And what it showed was that at the very beginning of a journey where people are trying to raise awareness and meet people in discovery mode is where you distribute and create podcast content. And at the very acute end of the buying journey is where you produce and distribute webinar and case study content. We can see here that around 80% of people that consume webinars are either in that consideration or decision stage. And so we took a look at this and said, how can marketing teams, in the most efficient way possible, create one piece of content, but allow it to meet people where they are in the various stages of their journey in the most efficient and engaging way? And that was where that focus on watchable content came from, because from that single production, we can feed the podcast content requirement. We can create blogs from the talk track that came from the transcript. We can cut it up into engaging, enhanced with A and B roll content, short videos, which give those individuals a dopamine hit that make them want to binge on your brand and how you see the world. Imagery becomes simpler because we can create thumbnails and promotional imagery that feeds into all of these other assets that we're looking to drive the traffic to. The long form is a natural output that comes from the production, and then it comes all the way down to webinars, and we may even be choosing to elevate case studies as the core story that we're telling in the production. And so all of a sudden, we're now at a position where we can actually cover this whole spectrum of content to about 90% with one single production. And the distribution comes down to a process, a playbook, a system. This is, of course, something we can help people with, which is what we specialize in. But you just need to develop that process for yourselves and know that when you create one piece of content, you're satisfying many parts of the customer journey by cutting up and distributing it in this way.
Yeah, that's it's so great seeing it like this, because I meet a ton of marketers and revenue leaders that are trying to understand, like, how do I attract people that are at the buying decision stage? And a lot of teams just obsess over that part, which is like where the 2-3% of the market, based on the larger market formula, are ever existing. So it's like a tiny percentage of everything else. And I think this perfectly shows maybe some of the different strategies that you can run with through that one piece of content to affect multiple parts across that buying and evaluation process that people go through. Now, from what I understand, James, we've got three spots for any business today that maybe doesn't quite understand how they could apply this watchable content methodology for their own business, and you're going to run specific masterclasses with them. Can you just explain what that is and allow people to opt into that, if you can give them that view?
Yeah, perfect, Stu. So what's great about distributing all of this content is there is many first-party signals that will come from it. We can track the individuals that engage with the content on social, reveal themselves by commenting or liking. Of course, we track all of the individuals that sign up for the webinar, say, hey, like, this is a pain and a problem that I am thinking about daily, therefore I'm willing to give you my personal information so I can access this insight. How do we bridge the gap between that early signal and a sales call? Because that's ultimately what we're all shooting towards. We want to have those sales conversations. We want to be able to help these businesses in a much more developed and advanced way. And the way that we do that is through irresistible offers of knowledge. And so what we're proposing as our irresistible offer today is how you leverage those signals and then provide to them an offer of knowledge which they find so irresistible. In fact, they would feel a little bit silly saying no, that they agree to a one-to-one call with your sales team. And on that one-to-one call, we provide them with just a few degrees of more insight and information that resonates with them and provides the platform for us to set up the sales call immediately from that point. Building those offers of knowledge has always been something that becomes clear the second you see it. When we say an offer to most businesses, they will think, oh, I need to give 6 months free or a month free or some free consultancy. But until many of these prospects really understand the pain that your business solves for, they can't value those types of offers. But if we can help them with the pains and problems that they are dealing with today to a greater degree, it will build more trust and give us the opportunity to find out more about them so we can help them properly. And it's these irresistible offers that really do break through the noise. And what we're offering is 3 spots, 3 one-to-one workshops, where we will work through with you what your proposition is, what the pains that you solve for are, and therefore what should that irresistible offer of knowledge be that your audience will find simply irresistible and want to book those one-on-one calls in the calendar with your sales reps.
Awesome.
I think the button's on screen now. Hit it if you want to take one of those slots. It'll be me that's hosting the sessions, and I can't wait to dig into it with you guys.
Yeah, that's great. And I think if I was to just summarize the last kind of 15-ish minutes of the conversation, it was like identifying the challenges of 2024. And then we spoke about one particular area that we saw consistently work, which was that watchable content piece. And all of the predictions say that in 2025, that's only going to become even more prominent. And I think that was the first part of what worked. The second one was about cold calling. And this is one that I'm really excited to go into a little bit more detail on, because we really have been thinking about how do you leverage cold calling even more effectively in the modern market. So let me share my screen again. And I think this is for me one of the biggest shifts in 2024 that is now the focus. So Let's talk about the new cold outbound. And it actually ties in perfectly with what we are discussing, which is this new concept of inbound led outbound. And why that's so important is that because traditional cold outbound, I wouldn't say it completely stopped working, but for most businesses where their BDRs were able to drive 10, 11, 12 meetings predictably every month with qualified opportunities, over the last 12 months, for many teams, that's been degrading month over month as part of the challenges of less money in the market, buying decisions becoming even more complicated, and it means that BD performance generally has dropped quite considerably. And really, what the new cold outbound that we're seeing working, and our big prediction for 2025, is this idea of inbound led outbound, which means that we take inbound signals to decide who do we prioritize our outbound initiatives on. And why this is so interesting is if you think about the watchable content piece, it really allows us to understand how we can distribute this content in a really diverse way across multiple formats, across multiple channels, and allow the target accounts that we've identified to put their hand up and say, yeah, I'm interested in this. For example, a webinar. Yeah, I want to sign up to this topic. And it's that allows our BD team to strategically prioritize those accounts on who to focus on. And really what this says is that the old way was that we were randomly selecting target accounts out of a data pool of, say, 1,000 accounts. So each month we would take 100 and target them. The old way was that they would go into a 30 or 45-day sequence, and the other was that they would have low ICP qualification. But really, what we're saying with the 2025 way is that they take those inbound signals and start to prioritize their outbound initiatives around it. And James, obviously, you're covering a lot of teams, you've got a lot of great visibility. Why do you think inbound led outbound is allowing teams to hit that meeting book goal, that glorious number of somewhere between 10 to 12 every single month in a really predictable way? What would be your view on that, and why it's working so well?
One of the points that you had up on screen there, Stuart, was named accounts, and that has probably been one of the biggest breakthrough tactics for many of the teams that we've been working with. At the beginning of a go-to-market strategy, or in a go-to-market strategy, if we have a very clear idea of the businesses who should be our customer because they can afford us, because they have the business structure or the existing technologies that make sense for our service to help them and be within their business, then we should put absolute focus into those accounts. One of the biggest problems that I've ever seen marketers come up against is that when leads come through that maybe don't fit a salesperson's expectation of what the lead should look like, that salesperson discounts the credibility of all the others. By keeping acutely focused on the leads that come from those named accounts, we can start to create better, more relevant content which breaks through the noise and captures their attention. And we can start to see first-party signals coming from multiple places. Of course, we've got the inbound on the website. We've got site visits to the website where we might be using site tracking, lead scoring. We've then got the sign-ups that come from activations such as webinars. These are all indicators that people are interested in the pains and the problems that we solve and that we're talking about out in the market. And when we see those signals, we need to start to take them incredibly seriously. We need to understand that this individual may not be ready for a full-scale sales pitch or sales call or suggestion of a demo, but they more than likely want more help. And if we can take more value to them in the shape of a one-to-one call, that is what then bridges the gap between those sales meetings that we are aspiring for and ultimately the market of people that should be our customer. And so take your first-party signals more seriously than anything else, because these individuals have chosen to reveal themselves. And if we all buy into the statistic that we have seen in many, many places, that 90% of the buying journey is done before anybody reveals themselves to a business, it should be that gives us the motivation to take every first-party signal that we see from a named individual in a target account more seriously than anything else. And if we go to them with more value and we help them with the pains and problems they're suffering with, we will turn them into meetings and we will turn them into customers.
Yeah.
So named account piece is where it starts, and then absolute focus needs to be placed on it in order to obtain the meetings that suit the business strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense because, like, would you rather work a completely cold audience that you've got no idea whether they have any interest in what you're doing or they've got any plan to prioritize solving your solution over anything else that they could do? Or leveraging some of that first party insight to say, yeah, that's where I'm going to put the extra effort, that's where I'm going to apply the human touch to call, to do great personalized content, video content, whatever that may be, driven by that signal of intent. And I think that is just such a powerful way to think about the evolution of cold outbound or traditional outbound, that it's easier now with AI than ever before to distribute cold outbound to anyone in the world. So we really need to be focused on who we actually are trying to strategically target with some of those inbound signals. So yeah, I love it, and I think it's a really great tip for 2025. Now, coming to like the final section of this conversation, we have been speaking a lot about a new metric that is becoming more and more prominent in certain areas of the world or certain conversations to allow businesses to understand how their go to market is performing. And James, you and I have spoke a lot about it, and that is what we call go to market efficiency. So let's pull this up and let's just give a quick view of what go to market efficiency is, if you want to talk through this and why it's so important and why everybody should be listening to this concept of go to market efficiency.
Yeah, so this is a subject that the team over at Winning by Design, the team at Refine Labs and Passetto have also been talking about. If you're familiar with those businesses, they are individuals that are just obsessed with helping their customers win as we are. And where a lot of that conversation goes is trying to get away from the siloed attribution level, trying to figure out, is this program working, is that program working, and looking at the overall health of our revenue engine, our revenue factory, as Winning by Design would refer to it as. And the calculation of go-to-market efficiency is a simple one, and it's a parent metric that should be in discussion at every single boardroom in B2B. What we calculate is, what is our total spend on sales and marketing? That includes headcount, that includes technology, that includes ad spend. Then, over a period, how much pipeline did that generate? What was our close rate? 20%, 25%? And then how much of that revenue were we able to retain? This calculation allows us to identify how much do we need to spend in order to secure a dollar, a pound, in ARR, in annual recurring revenue. Now, we've just come out of the growth at any cost era, and so a metric of this nature couldn't have been further from anybody's mind or wanting to, further from anybody's focus. But now we are entering an era which has to be profit-led, and what we need to have absolute confidence in is that our revenue machine is spending a dollar and getting two in return. To do that, you need to understand where you are today. And so I would recommend running those calculations on what happened across the course of 2024 so you understand what your benchmark is to improve upon in 2025. You're not going to go from spending $5 to make one to spending one to make two overnight. But if you can then implement the programs across your revenue factory that move the metrics in the right direction, your business is getting healthier and you are starting to win as a result, and your valuations and your funding conversations will be much better and healthier as a result.
Yeah. So I think why it's so timely is because we did a session a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago, that was all about the fact that the over focus or over obsession of attribution kills so many great go to market initiatives far too early. And I think what I love about the whole piece of go-to-market efficiency is that instead of obsessing over a channel or a strategy, it's looking at it from a much more holistic perspective. And why that's so important is because if you ask anybody that has built a truly successful go-to-market machine, they more often than not say it's multi-touch, uh, multi-channel campaigns that touch people at the start of their buying discovery right the way through to the end of that discovery. And that means that you have to have that diversity in your strategy to have a chance of capturing the audience that you want. And by looking at it from a go-to-market efficiency metric on a kind of macro level, rather than looking at a channel or a initiative, it's just having that understanding that all of this combined is what makes our revenue machine that much more efficient and our ability to hit our goals. And I think it's particularly relevant to pull up some examples of this because there's been a lot of research carried out in publicly available sources. And I would love you to just kind of talk through this slide, which I think is so interesting for anybody that's watching, on what good looks like, and then we'll maybe flip to what maybe less good looks like so that people can understand what the typical goals are. So do you want to maybe pick out a couple of examples here, James, and explain where the research came from and ultimately what it's proving?
Yeah, perfect, Stuart. So go-to-market efficiency is a big topic, and it's got a lot of incredibly smart people looking at it, focused on it, helping businesses move to a healthier go-to-market efficiency. Now, these insights on screen right now are provided by a company called Bench Insights. The founder of Bench Insights is a gentleman named David Spitz. Find him on LinkedIn. He talks a lot about this topic. What this table is showing us here is of the 80 B2B SaaS technology businesses that currently exist on the stock exchange, these are the ones that are performing the best. AppFolio has a go-to-market efficiency ratio of 50%, which it means it spends $1 and it makes 2 in return. That's $1 on sales and marketing spend, not total business expense, but it makes $2 in ARR as a result. Now, these numbers are from some analysis that was done in August of 2024, so around the Q3 period. As a result of that performance, we're seeing a high revenue multiple. We're seeing an increase in the stock price over there on the far right column, a 38% increase in the last 12 months. As we come down this table, who are, by the way, the top performers, we start to see that Shopify is spending 92 cents in order to create $1 in ARR. Palantir, $1.63 to secure $1 in ARR. And so it's not uncommon for businesses to slightly spend more than what it, in marketing and sales spend in order to acquire that dollar, because they understand that they retain customers and the customer acquisition cost payback will happen in year 2, 18 months or 2 years, 3 years down the line. If we go across to the next slide, Stuart, we can start to see these are now some of the more medium performers, some names in there I'm sure you'll all recognize. But the way that we look at this calculation is by looking at the percentage. So 249% for MongoDB would be $2.49 in sales and marketing spend to obtain $1 in ARR. As we come down to some of the businesses that are not performing quite so well, we see businesses such as PagerDuty, for example. They're currently spending $6.09 in sales and marketing spend to secure $1 in ARR. Now, of course, there's going to be variables inside these businesses, like they might be entering new markets. There's been considerable periods of spend over this year, anomalies of that nature. But across 80 businesses, we can start to understand what type of product market fit is required, what type of commercial model is required, what type of programs from a marketing perspective are working to feed the funnel, feed pipeline, and sustain a close rate, which gives them a healthy go-to-market efficiency, which then informs their stock market price increase, their valuation increase. Now, we don't always have we don't have any public statistic for private businesses, but this starts to give us a North Star metric that we can look to. Businesses that have an existing sales motion, run that calculation for the past 12 months. What did you spend on sales and marketing? How much pipeline did it generate? And how much did you close? and then start to think about what do I need to do in 2025 to improve that metric, to steer the business in a more positive direction. Now, I just want to make one final point on that there, Stuart, is because you made the comment about attribution killing some of the best possible campaigns. And just to unpack that statement ever so slightly, to my mind, what immediately came to mind is when businesses invest in content that legitimately helps their market and they push it out there regularly on the right channels where their prospects consume their information, where they want to be entertained, where they want to be educated, where they want to be inspired, those businesses become the controlling voice in a marketplace. And their truth will often become their prospects' truth too. It's incredibly hard to attribute those types of programs to did it lead to this particular sale. Why? Because when I see a great snippet from a founder who's being interviewed on a podcast or a webinar being marketed where the topic is exactly on the point that I am struggling with today, but you know what? I don't have that 30 minutes, therefore I'm going to go to the website. Well, I type in the name of the business, I hit the Google search results, I click on the result, and Google gets attributed with the last touch. And everything on the marketing dashboard gets skewed. Yeah. And what we always need to do is, as marketers, communicating to the rest of the businesses, take a step back. We are controlling the conversation in this market. What we need to measure over the next 3 and 6 months is our pipeline generation metrics improving? Are we generating more pipeline for the pound we spend? Yeah. And it's these types of activations with the watchable content, the giving value through the traditional methods of things like calling, that see those metrics move in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think, like, if I was to summarize the observation of what has worked in 2024, the predictions for 2025, and how it ties together with go-to-market efficiency, it is about making the best use of the resource or the media, whatever that may be, that you have. So taking the amazing piece of watchable content, that one production, creating 7 or 8 different formats, amazing. That there's efficiency in itself. Instead of having a BDR try and find a needle in a haystack with an account that's in the market and just spread themselves so thin, it's about focusing them on accounts where they've shown inbound signals to then dictate the BDR output. Again, a great strategically efficient way to do it. And I think, out of everything that we've seen over the last 12 months and why we're so excited about the next 12 months, is that the teams that are nailing it are really nailing it. And they are really pushing forward, and they're able to have highly efficient teams that are delivering the meeting book target that they want at a price point that the market is willing to pay, and crucially, great fit accounts, because you mentioned that point earlier about named accounts. Because they are that perfect account, they want to stay with you, they want to buy, they want to increase their spend with you. And all of those things combined, I think, just give us such an exciting perspective on what's going to come in 2025 and how much opportunity there is for businesses that do it right. So I'm super excited about it. One last thought from you, James, to kind of summarize 2024 and going into 2025. Anything you want to share with everybody that's watching now or maybe on a later recording?
Yeah, let me share just a couple of sound bites that are bumping around in my head right now. One, invest in that named account research. Know exactly who the businesses are that should be your customer, and then find the right people in those businesses that you want to be threading into. Because once you do that research to a really high standard, you will have their validated email address, you will have their phone number, and the phone number data in the market today is exceptional, which means we can reach out to them and be more helpful. But we can then take that audience and use it in things like first-party targeting on LinkedIn, first-party targeting on Meta. And so as you look back at this amazing content that you've maybe produced in the past, but didn't fully exercise all the value from it, you can then start to repurpose that content, place it in front of these individuals on a reasonable frequency. The world is busy. It takes about 10 touch points for us to even realize a message exists. It takes about 20 for us to realize that it contains value for us. And so take this great content, which helps the market, repurpose it into these various different shapes that require it to meet the needs of the customer journey, and get it out there. And be helpful, be human, educate, entertain, inspire, and watch those metrics at the parent, the board level of what your business is measuring from a revenue success perspective improve.
Yeah, love it. And look, there is another opportunity now. If you're watching and you're eager to get ahead of 2025, there is an opportunity for you to meet with our team where we're going to go into some of these incredible examples of businesses that are crushing it. We're going to give you all of the insights on how to establish our go-to-market metrics today and maybe some goals for the future. So if you want one of those spots, I think there's 2 available. Please hit it, and that will be completed before the end of the year, which we're really excited to be part of. So yeah, everybody, thank you so much for joining. Appreciate it. It's been great speaking with you, James. Thanks as always. And yeah, everybody have a wonderful break over the festive period, and we look forward to continuing the conversation in January, where we'll have another one of these. So thank you so much, and take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.